I am a professional cleaner for the wealthy. 2 years ago, in the middle of the pandemic, I answered an ad on Nextdoor for a lawn care job. I live in Florida and I was falling short of my bills, so I decided to do work after work and weekends to make ends meet. The job description was fairly bland, in the description talking about brush clearing, weeding, mowing grass and planting flowers. Normal lawn care stuff. One piece added to the description was, if you do you a good job, there can be more week depending on effort, or something to that effect. I didn't know at the time this was them testing me for how well I followed orders and could execute. The first couple of weeks it was just doing yard work, and the bonus was it paid really nicely, around $200 an evening and up to $1,000 for a full weekend of work, around 6 hours a day. I remember the day it changed. One of the dogs on the property was killed by a wildcat. This is in Central Florida, so there are wildcats occasionally, but this was a grim scene. Blood and guts everywhere all over their patio area. One of the other guys working the property omitted and quit as he was being forced to do this. I needed the cash, so I did my job. I cleaned it with bleach and some other cleaners, and they went over the area with a black light like CSI and even swabbed the area. I was told it was because the owners were germaphobes. I always worked with the property manager. At the time I didn't think anything of the event until I got an extra $5,000 for cleaning it up. No blood nor DNA came up. In retrospect, that was a giant red flag. A couple of weeks went by and there were a few more cleaning incidents, but I was told to let other laborers work it. They were guys similar to me. Many were supplementing their income with DoorDash and Uber, and quite a few quit after being asked to clean up dead possums or even a dead peacock. The scenes were very similar to the dog, blood and guts everywhere. We were worried, but the property manager told us we were safe as there was armed security about and the predators never attacked the staff. We got a heads up about a month after I cleaned up the dog that the owners were returning from their summer house and the property needed to be extra perfect. I was complimented for my work and was asked if I wanted to earn some additional pay working a party. I agreed, as the pay was a few thousand and a new suit to basically work as a gopher/general labor during a cocktail party. That night everything changed and I fell in the hole. That night everything seemed normal. Rich people in suits, mainly white, expensive cars and food, classical music, etc. The party was scheduled for 4 hours, and it went on as expected with a dinner and music, though most of it was rich people networking. I was asked to help notify the valets folks were leaving, assisting with a glass of water, helping escort people to find the bathroom, etc. Once the party was winding down, I was asked if I could stay a bit later for the after party. It was double what I was being paid, which meant I would net almost $10,000 for the day's work. I agreed and was told I was being paid for discretion and help only. That's when the kids arrived. At first I didn't realize they were kids. The boys and girls were dressed up like adults, just shorter/smaller in some cases. They worked like Eve masks and suits/dresses and started arriving as most of the other guests left. I didn't know how young they were and thought maybe it was like a college after party thing. For like an hour nothing happened, only talking, laughing and snacks. Then people started getting handsy and vanishing to the more residential area of the mansion. I realized it was like Eyes Wide Shut and was hoping if I was asked to join I'd get a woman and not some fat old guy. I wasn't asked to join, I was only the help. About 2 a.m., it happened. It was like that scene out of The Godfather, but no one was dead. A boy and a man were in the room and the room was trashed. It reminded me of what rock stars discuss: furniture trashed and booze everywhere. Both the man and boy were half naked and bloody, like they had been fighting. The boy was mid-teens and looked out of it, like he was hit hard in football. The man was fit and red-faced. Both were being held back by security and I was asked to start tidying up as they escorted the boy out. I remember the guy shouting while laughing, "You're fucking dead," several times. I cleaned the room while listening to audible sounds of people fucking all around me. After I finished, I was given a bonus and driven home. I know it was kind of a threat, like they knew where I lived, but I netted over $15,000 for a night's work. I fell in the hole and I knew it was wrong. The next day the property manager asked to talk to me about the cleanup. I was taken to an office filled with dead and mounted game, weapons, and armor. It reminded me of the room from the last scene of the 80s Roadhouse film. The property manager, an older Cuban guy, talked to me about discretion and how these were powerful people and my job is not to judge. I affirmed that and told him I was hired to clean up after party. There was some menace, but I knew the situation, but I also wanted the money. The property manager told me I wasn't going to work on the yard anymore, and if I wanted I could continue to work as a support specialist for future parties. I agreed and we then parted ways. I went home and awaited the call. A few weeks later I got another call. This continued a pattern where there would be a main party, an after party followed by private but audible orgies, and the newcomers were always young and wearing masks. One of my setup tasks were removing religious displays from the house, crosses, Bibles, pictures of Jesus, etc. I was told it was due to a multicultural group attending these parties and they didn't want to force religion down anyone's throat. It was like 6 months later when I had to clean up another mess. That night there was another ruckus, but this was outside by the pool. I went out and a girl was seizing on the ground, blood coming from her mouth and eyes. She was nude and her body was reddened like she was beaten up. A woman was lounging on a lawn chair smiling at the scene, totally nude and in her 60s. She wore a very lavish necklace with rubies that I remember from earlier that night. I later recognized her as the wife of some sugar executive. The guy with her was not her husband but a muscular older guy. A doctor came by and took her away after injecting her with something. I was told it was medication. I was ordered by a security guard to clean up the spot as they escorted the guy and lady inside. The next day I was asked to come in to debrief. I was told the girl had a seizure due to too much drinking but was fine, and was complimented on my cleaning. On the way out, another dead dog by the pool right where the girl was and I had cleaned. That freaked me out. This continued for another year. While I never saw anything directly satanic, I knew what was going on there was. I learned later the food served in the after party were laced with drugs and the newcomers were often drugged up before the party. Some were visibly younger but I think most were 12 plus. I even saw some famous politicians at the house, though I do not know if any of them stayed for the after party. The worst experience happened a few months ago and it was the reason I quit. I netted a few $100,000 from this job and was able to buy a nice house and car and pay off my student loans, but I couldn't do it anymore. It was shortly after the party that there was a commotion in the large public bathroom in the main house. It's the bathroom for visitors and lacked a shower/tub, but was bigger than my dorm in college with a fancy gold toilet and bidet. I walked in, the scene was grim. Blood and fluids everywhere. One of the newcomers had inhaled by slitting their wrists and vomited piss and shit all over the place. She was young but had a tramp stamp. Her body was between the toilet and bidet and she was dead. I was ordered by security to be discreet and not tell anyone. I cleaned up and watched them take her body out in a rug. After that point the stalking started.